I was 32 years old the night my father told a room full of people that I was worthless. He didn't use those exact words, of course. My father never did. He was too clever for that, too practiced in the art of wounding without leaving visible scars. But standing there in that hotel ballroom, champagne flute raised high, his face flushed with wine and pride, he might as well have said it outright. "Some kids make you proud," he announced, his voice carrying over the gentle chatter of my sister's wedding reception. "Others just take up space." The room erupted in laughter. Uncomfortable laughter. The kind that happens when someone says something cruel disguised as a joke, and nobody knows quite how to respond. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, but I could see her eyes crinkling at the corners. She was smiling. My sister Valerie, beautiful, radiant Valerie in her $10,000 dress, tilted her head and gave me that look. The one that said, "Oh, Daddy, you're terrible, but also, he's not wrong, is he?" I was sitting at table 9. Not the family table. Not even close. Table 9 was where they'd seated the distant cousins and my father's old college roommate who nobody really talked to anymore. I'd helped pay for this wedding. Wrote a check for $5,000 I didn't really have because Mom had called me crying, saying they were short and couldn't Valerie have the wedding she deserved. I watched my father's face as everyone laughed. Watched the way he basked in it, the attention, the validation. He'd always been like this, a performer, a charmer, someone who needed an audience to feel alive. And I'd always been his easiest target. The thing about being the disappointment in your family is that you learn to make yourself small. You learn to laugh at jokes made at your expense. You learn to nod and smile when your mother tells you that maybe if you just lost a little weight, or dressed differently, or tried harder, things would be different. You learn to swallow down the hurt until it becomes something dense and heavy that lives in your chest, right behind your ribs. I'd been swallowing for 32 years, but that night, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was watching Valerie throw her head back and laugh. Diamond earrings catching the light diamonds I'd helped pay for when she'd maxed out her credit cards 3 months before the wedding. Maybe it was seeing my father's face, so satisfied, so sure that his joke had landed perfectly. Or maybe I was just tired. I stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. My chair scraped against the polished floor, and the sound cut through the laughter like a knife. Conversations died. Heads turned. My father's smile faltered. "Just for a second, Gianna," my mother said, her voice sharp with warning. I didn't sit down. "I have something to say," I announced. My voice sounded strange to my own ear, steady, calm. Nothing like the trembling mess I felt inside. My father lowered his glass. "Sweetheart, this isn't the time." "No, Dad, it is the time." I took a breath. "You just told everyone here that some kids make you proud and others take up space. I think they deserve to know which category I fall into, don't they?" The silence was absolute now. 200 people holding their breath. "You're being dramatic," he said, but his voice had lost its warmth. "Am I?" I walked toward the head table, each step feeling like I was crossing a vast distance. "Let me tell everyone about the kid who takes up space. She put herself through community college, working 3 jobs because you told her you couldn't afford to help her when you'd just bought a boat. She loaned you $12,000 when your business was failing, money she'd saved for a down payment on a house. Money you've never paid back. She covered Valerie's security deposit when she moved to New York, paid for Mom's dental work last year when insurance wouldn't cover it, wrote that check for this wedding even though her car is held together with duct tape and prayer." My mother's face had gone white. Valerie was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "That kid," I continued, my voice shaking now but not stopping, "spent her whole life trying to earn your approval, trying to be good enough, smart enough, thin enough, successful enough. And you know what? She finally figured something out tonight." I was standing right in front of my father now, close enough to see the tiny broken capillaries on his nose, the way his jaw was clenched. "She figured out that she was never going to be enough for you. Because you didn't want a daughter. You wanted a mirror. Someone to reflect back all your hopes and dreams and delusions about yourself. And when she couldn't do that, when she was just herself, you decided she was worthless." "Gianna, that's enough," my mother hissed. No, Mom, it's not nearly enough. But it's all I'm going to say. I looked at my father one last time. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your pride in Valerie. She deserves it. She's exactly what you wanted. Someone who looks good in photos and doesn't ask uncomfortable questions. I turned to leave, but my father grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, desperate. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. You're going to regret embarrassing this family. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. The only thing I regret is how long it took me to realize I was never the problem. You were. I pulled away and walked out of that ballroom with my head high. I didn't look back. Didn't see my mother's face or my sister's shock or the 200 guests whispering and staring. I walked out into the cool October night and I kept walking until I reached my car. And then I sat there in the parking lot, hands shaking on the steering wheel, and I let myself cry. Not sad tears. Angry ones. Relieved ones. The kind of tears that come when you finally tell the truth after lying for so long. My phone started buzzing before I even left the parking lot. My mother, my sister, my Aunt Linda, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. 17 missed calls by the time I got home to my tiny apartment with its leaking faucet and the couch I'd bought at a garage sale. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and I started making a list. A very specific list. Money I'd loaned to family members. 23,400. Money I'd spent bailing them out of various crises. 8,900. Money I'd given for birthdays, holidays, emergencies. 4,200. Total. 36,500. $36,500. That was the price of belonging to a family that had never really wanted me. The price of trying to buy love that was never for sale. I stared at that number for a long time. Then I opened a new document and started typing. The next morning, I woke up to 43 text messages and a voicemail from my father that made my blood run cold. Your mother is devastated, his voice said, tight with rage. You ruined your sister's wedding. You made us look like fools in front of our friends, our colleagues. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to apologize. You need to make this right. I deleted the voicemail. I didn't delete the list though. I printed it. 3 copies. One for my records, one for my lawyer, and one for my family. You see, I'd spend that whole night thinking, planning, and I'd realized something crucial. I didn't need them. I'd been supporting myself for years while also supporting them. I'd been the one giving, and they'd been taking, all while telling me I wasn't enough. But I was enough. More than enough. And it was time they knew it. The letter I wrote was simple. Dear Mom, Dad, and Valerie, I'm writing to formally request repayment of the loans detailed in the attached document. I understand that some of these were given during times of family need, but they were loans, not gifts, and I need the money returned. I'm also writing to let you know that I will no longer be available for emergency financial assistance, loan requests, or bailouts. I love you, but I need to prioritize my own financial stability and mental health. I hope you can understand. Gianna, professional, polite, unassailable. I mailed it on Monday morning, sent copies via email, and then I blocked their numbers. All of them. Mom, Dad, Valerie, every aunt and uncle and cousin who'd texted me to call me selfish or dramatic or ungrateful. The silence that followed was deafening and wonderful. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for my phone to ring with another crisis. Wasn't checking my bank account with dread, wondering what emergency I'd need to cover next. Wasn't lying awake at night wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't lovable enough. I started going to therapy. Real therapy, with a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen who had kind eyes and didn't let me get away with making excuses for my family's behavior. They trained you to believe your value was in what you could give them, she told me in our 3rd session. And when you stopped giving, they had no use for you. It hurt to hear, but it was true. I started working overtime, picked up every extra shift I could at the hospital where I worked as a medical records clerk. It wasn't glamorous work, my father had made sure I knew that, comparing it constantly to Valerie's job in marketing at a prestigious firm in Manhattan. But it was steady, honest work. And it was mine, I opened a savings account that only I had access to. Started putting away money every paycheck. $50, $100, whatever I could manage. The lawsuit came 6 weeks later. My father was suing me for emotional distress and reputational damage caused by my outburst at the wedding. He was asking for $25,000. I laughed when I got the papers. Actually laughed. Because of course he was. Of course the man who had never paid me back a dime was now trying to sue me for daring to tell the truth. My lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s named Catherine Roth, who I'd found through a legal aid clinic, looked at the case and shook her head. This won't go anywhere, she said. He has no grounds. But I need to ask you something. Do you have documentation of the loans you gave them? I pulled out my meticulously kept records. Every check, every Venmo, every wire transfer. Dates, amounts, reasons. I'd always been careful about that. Even when they'd rolled their eyes and called me paranoid, Catherine smiled. Then we're going to be just fine. In fact, we might want to consider a countersuit. We didn't need to. My father dropped the lawsuit 2 weeks later when Catherine sent him a letter detailing exactly what she'd present in court. Years of documented loans. Text messages where he'd promised to pay me back soon. Emails from my mother asking for money. The family story would have come out. All of it. In public record. He withdrew the suit and I never heard from him again. Not directly anyway. The messages came through other people. My cousin Rachel, who I'd been close to as kids. My mother's sister and Diane. They all said the same thing in different ways. Your father is hurt. Your mother is heartbroken. Valerie doesn't understand why you're doing this. Can't you just forgive and move on? I didn't respond to those either. Instead, I kept working, kept saving, kept going to therapy and learning how to set boundaries, how to recognize manipulation, how to understand that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. 6 months after the wedding, I got a promotion. Not a huge one, assistant manager of my department, but it came with a raise. $3 more an hour. To me, it felt like winning the lottery. I took myself out to dinner to celebrate. Sat alone at a nice restaurant. Ordered the salmon, drank a glass of wine, and felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. The waiter, a kind-faced man probably in his 60s, noticed I was alone. Special occasion? He asked. Promotion. I said, and I couldn't keep the pride out of my voice. Congratulations. You know what? Dessert's on me. Anyone celebrating an accomplishment like that deserves something sweet. He brought me chocolate cake. I cried into it. Right there in the restaurant. Because a stranger had shown me more kindness in 5 minutes than my family had shown me in 32 years. 8 months after the wedding, I started dating someone. His name was Marcus, and he was a nurse at the hospital. He was quiet, steady, and the first time I told him about my family, he didn't tell me I should forgive them or that blood is thicker than water. He just held my hand and said, "That must have hurt so much." Simple, direct, true. We took things slow. I was learning what healthy love looked like, and it was nothing like what I'd grown up with. Marcus didn't keep score. Didn't make me feel like I owed him something for his affection. Didn't compare me to other women and find me lacking. He just liked me. For me, it was revolutionary. A year after the wedding, I paid off my car. Every dent, every rattle, but it was mine. Completely mine. And I didn't owe anyone anything for it. 18 months after the wedding, I'd saved enough for a down payment on a small condo. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a kitchen with outdated appliances, but it had good light and it was in a safe neighborhood. And when I signed the papers, I cried again. "This is yours," the real estate agent said, handing me the keys. "Congratulations, Miss Torres. Mine. Not ours. Not the family's. Mine." I hung photos on the walls. Photos of friends I'd made. Of Marcus and me at the beach. Of my therapy dog Biscuit, who I'd adopted 6 months earlier. Not a single photo of my family. People noticed. Co-workers who'd heard me talk about family obligations and drama asked where everyone was. I told them the truth. We weren't in contact anymore. Some people got it. Some people looked at me like I was a monster. One woman, Linda from accounting, pulled me aside and said, "Good for you. I did the same thing 10 years ago." Best decision I ever made. There were hard days. Holidays especially. The first Thanksgiving without a family invitation hurt more than I'd expected. But Marcus invited me to his family's dinner, and his mother hugged me at the door and said, "We're so glad you're here." And I understood for the first time that family didn't have to be blood. Christmas was harder. I saw Facebook photos of my parents and Valerie at their annual holiday party. Everyone looked happy. Perfect. Like I'd never existed. I closed the app and didn't open it again for a week. 2 years after the wedding, I got another promotion. Department manager. Actual management. A salary instead of hourly wages. Benefits. Respect. I called Dr. Chan, my therapist, to tell her, "I'm proud of you," she said. Not just for the promotion. For everything. For choosing yourself. That night, Marcus took me out to celebrate. And at dinner, he said something that made my breath catch. "I've been thinking," he said slowly. "My hospital has an opening in Seattle. It's a good position. Better pay. Better opportunities. And I know you've been talking about wanting a fresh start. About putting real distance between you and everything here, Seattle. 2,800 miles from my parents. From the memories. From the constant wondering if I'd run into them at the grocery store or the bank. Are you asking me to move with you?" I said. "I'm asking if you want to start over. Together. Somewhere new. Somewhere that's just ours." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes. 3 months later. We loaded everything I owned into a moving truck. It wasn't much. I'd spent so many years living small, staying mobile in case my family needed something, that I'd never really accumulated possessions. But what I had was mine. Paid for with my own money. Chosen for my own life. We drove across the country and for days. Marcus drove while I navigated. We stopped at roadside diners and slept in cheap motels and listened to podcasts about true crime and comedy and everything in between. We didn't talk about where we were coming from, only where we were going. Seattle was gray and rainy and absolutely perfect. We found an apartment with a view of the water. I got a job at a major hospital system. A real career position with room for advancement. Marcus started at his new hospital and came home every day with stories that made me laugh. We adopted a cat named Pepper who hated everyone except us. We explored the city on weekends. We made friends with our neighbors, a retired couple who brought us cookies and invited us to dinner parties. I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. And I didn't feel guilty about it. 2.5 years after the wedding, I got a message on LinkedIn. Not a blocked number I'd recognize, but a professional platform where I'd recently updated my profile with my new position and location. It was from Valerie. "Gianna, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something. Dad had a heart attack. He's okay, but it was serious. And it made me think about everything that happened. About what he said at my wedding. About how we treated you. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I don't know if you can or should, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I laughed. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I'm sorry I took your money and your help and never appreciated what you were sacrificing. I hope you're happy. Wherever you are. You deserve to be." I read the message 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went to find Marcus. My sister messaged me. I said, "My dad had a heart attack. How do you feel?" He asked, not "Are you going to call them? Or you should reach out." Just asking how I felt. "I feel sad," I said slowly. Not for him exactly. For what could have been. For the father I wish I'd had instead of the one I got. But I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like I need to fix it. "Then you don't have to do anything," Marcus said simply. I didn't respond to Valerie's message. But I didn't delete it either. I kept it. A small record of acknowledgement. Maybe she really was sorry. Maybe the years and distance had given her perspective. Or maybe she just felt guilty because our father's mortality had smacked her in the face. It didn't matter. Her apology didn't change what had happened. Didn't erase the years of being the family scapegoat, the backup plan, the one who existed to make everyone else's lives easier. But it did something else. It confirmed what I'd known. Deep down, for years, I'd been right to leave. Right to choose myself. Right to demand better. 3 years after the wedding, Marcus and I got married. A small ceremony at a botanical garden in Seattle. Just 30 people. Friends, co-workers, Marcus's family who'd adopted me as one of their own. My friend Jessica from work stood beside me as my maid of honor. She'd been there through the whole journey, the therapy, the healing, the late-night talks about family and trauma and what it means to build a life that's truly yours. We didn't send invitations to my parents or Valerie. We didn't post photos on social media where they might see. This day was ours, untainted by the past. During the reception, Marcus's father gave a toast. Thomas was a retired teacher with a gentle voice and kind eyes, and when he stood up with his glass raised, I felt my stomach clench an old, familiar fear. But what he said was this: I've known Marcus his whole life, watched him grow from a boy into a man, and I've never seen him as happy as he's been since Gianna came into his life. She's taught him that love isn't about obligation or duty. It's about choosing someone every day, about showing up and being present and honest. Gianna, you've made our family richer just by being in it, and we're grateful every day that you chose us too. I cried. Marcus cried. Half the room cried, because this was what family was supposed to be. Chosen, supportive, built on respect and genuine affection, not guilt and expectation. After the reception, sitting in our hotel room with my shoes off and my hair coming loose from its careful styling, Marcus said, "No regrets." About what? About them not being here. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. I said finally. I regret that they weren't the people I needed them to be. But I don't regret this. I don't regret us. I don't regret choosing a life where I'm valued. He kissed my forehead. Good, because you deserve to be valued. Always. 4 years after the wedding, I became a director at my hospital. I supervised a team of 30 people. I made decisions that affected hundreds of patients. I was respected, valued, sought out for my expertise. I'd done it without family connections, without my father's business network, without anything but my own hard work and determination. Some nights, I'd lie in bed and think about that moment at Valerie's wedding. My father's face, the laughter, the humiliation, and I'd feel a little spark of satisfaction, knowing that I'd proven him wrong in the most complete way possible. Not by confronting him again, not by shouting or demanding acknowledgement, but by simply living well, by building a life so full and rich and good that his opinion of me didn't matter anymore. Marcus and I bought a house, 3 bedrooms, a yard for Pepper and Biscuit. We'd gotten a second dog, a kitchen where I could finally learn to cook the way I'd always wanted to. We planted a garden. We hosted dinner parties. We went on vacations to places I'd only dreamed about. We lived. 5 years after the wedding, I got an email from my mother. Not through LinkedIn or Facebook, but my work email, which meant she'd had to search for me. Had to put in effort. Gianna, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you should. But I'm writing it anyway because I need to say it. Your father and I are getting divorced. After 36 years. I'm not going to explain all the reasons, but one of them is that I've been thinking a lot about the choices I've made. The ways I failed you. The ways I chose keeping peace over protecting my daughter. I was wrong. At your sister's wedding, in all the years before that, in every moment I asked you to be smaller so everyone else could be bigger. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to call or write back. But I want you to know that you were never the problem. You were never too much or not enough. You were always exactly right. Exactly as you were meant to be. And I was too weak and too scared to see it. I hope you're happy. I hope you've built a life that makes you proud. You always deserved that. I love you. I'm sorry. Mommy read the email once. Then again. Then I saved it in a folder and didn't look at it for a week. When I finally showed it to Marcus, he asked the same question as always. How do you feel? Sad, I said. Relieved, angry, validated, all of it at once. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a long time. Days, weeks. Eventually, I wrote back. Not a long email. Just a few lines. Mom, thank you for writing. Thank you for acknowledging what happened. I can't say I'm ready to rebuild a relationship. I might never be, but I appreciate you taking responsibility. I am happy. I've built a good life. I hope you're able to do the same. John, I didn't invite her to visit. Didn't offer my phone number. Just left the door open a crack, not for her to walk back into my life, but for her to see that I'd survived without her, that I'd thrived. A week later, she responded with just 2 words, "I understand." And that was enough. Now, 6 years after that wedding, I'm sitting in my office at the hospital, looking out at the Seattle skyline, and I'm thinking about that night, about my father's toast, about the person I was then and the person I am now. The girl who stood up in that ballroom was brave, braver than she knew, but she was also desperate, still looking for validation, even in her rebellion, still defining herself in relation to the people who'd hurt her. The woman I am now doesn't need to prove anything, doesn't need to justify her choices or defend her boundaries, doesn't wake up wondering if maybe she was too harsh, too unforgiving, too much. I know my worth now. I know that I was never the problem. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. Cutting off my family, walking away from blood ties, choosing distance over reconciliation. And my answer is always the same. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they couldn't love me the way I needed to be loved. But I don't regret saving myself, because here's what I learned. Some families are toxic. Some parents damage their children. Some relationships can't be fixed, shouldn't be fixed, need to end for everyone to heal. And walking away isn't giving up. It's not being dramatic or unforgiving or cruel. Walking away is sometimes the bravest, kindest thing you can do for them and for yourself. My father raised his glass that night and told everyone I took up space. He was wrong. I don't take up space. I claim it. I fill it with love and work and joy and purpose. I build a life that's mine, on my terms, with people who value me. And that's not taking up space. That's living. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels.